I want to tell you about the year I started counting the times I said yes to somebody's second asking. I am 87 years old. One evening this past March, I sat down at my own kitchen table with a school notebook my great-granddaughter had left behind, and I went back through 12 months and wrote down every time I had told a person no, and then let that same person walk me all the way back around to yes. There were 9. 9 times my mouth said one thing and my hands did another. And when I set the pencil down, I did not feel ashamed, and I did not feel proud. I felt honest, maybe for the first time in years. Come closer to the stove and sit a while, and let an old man talk plain with you. I am not telling you that I stopped loving anybody. I am not telling you that I turned hard at 87, or that I quit answering my door, or that I made a list of names and drew a line through them. None of that is true. My door still opens. My coffee pot still works, and it works for anybody who wants a cup out of it. What I am telling you is smaller than that, and heavier. Somewhere after 70, my no-quit being a wall, it became a bench, a place where people sat down and waited to ask me again. My grandmother was mending a coat by the window one afternoon when a man came up the road wanting to borrow our only good horse. She told him no. He went away. 2 hours later, he came back up that same road with his hat in his hands and a longer story, and she said yes, and we hauled water by bucket for a week. She did not complain about the man. She put her needle down and she looked at me and she said, "Nobody ever takes your peace out of your hands. They ask for it twice, and the second time you hand it over yourself." I was 9 years old. I did not know what she meant for about 78 years. Now I know exactly what she meant, and I have 9 of them written down to prove it. The first confession is the harvest supper at the community hall. They called in September and asked me to run the griddle. 4 hours on my feet cooking for 200 people. I said no. I said it kindly and I said it clearly. My knees are 87 years old and they have opinions now. 9 days later, the same woman called back. She did not ask me again, exactly. She said, "We already put your name on the sheet, and nobody else can do it like you. That is not a question. That is a door being leaned on." I went. I stood at that griddle 4 hours, and I smiled the whole time. And then I sat in my truck in the dark lot for 20 minutes before I could drive, because my knees would not turn loose of me. My grandfather used to say a man can carry 2 loads if he wants, but he cannot call either one of them rest. I carried that supper home in my legs for 11 days. Before I go on, let me set something down beside you. I put everything I have learned about this into a small book called The Native Way. It is what my grandmother handed me, and what I have managed to work out since, written down in plain words, and the link is in the description under this video. There is no pressure at all in that. I am going to be right here talking with you either way, whether you open it tonight or you never open it at all. Some folks want something they can hold in their hands at 2 in the morning when the house has gone quiet on them, and some folks would rather just sit here by the stove with me and listen, and both of those suit me fine. It has been a long road getting old enough to write any of it down, and I would rather hand it over than sit on it. That is all I will say about that, and now I am done saying it. Let me give you the second confession. The second confession is my nephew's moving day back in April. He called and asked if I would help him move out of the house on 6th Street. I told him no, and I told him why. My back went out in February, and it has not come all the way home yet. He said he understood, and he did understand. Then, 4 days before, he called again, and he said, "You wouldn't have to lift anything, you could just supervise. Do you know what supervising looks like at 87? It looks like standing up for 5 hours. And then it looks like a boy of 42 carrying a dresser past his old uncle, and the old uncle reaching out with one hand because he cannot help it, because his hands are older than his sense." I lifted my end of that dresser. Of course I did. My grandmother said a fence you move once for one cow gets moved by every cow that comes after it. My back knew the truth of that saying for the rest of the month. The third confession and the fourth I will give you together, because they are the same animal wearing 2 coats, Third, my neighbor's daughter needed a ride to catch a plane at 5 in the morning. I said no. I do not drive in the dark anymore. The headlights come at me like somebody is throwing them. She asked again the next evening, standing on my porch with her hands folded, and she said the 4 words that get every old man in this country, just this once. I drove her. I sat in that terminal lot at 20 of 6 with my hands shaking on the wheel, asking myself who exactly I was proving something to. Fourth, a man from down the road wanted to borrow my truck for a weekend. I said no the first time, easy as breathing. He asked me the second time in front of 2 other men at the feed store, and I said yes in front of those same 2 men, which is precisely why he asked me there. The truck came back with a windshield cracked from one side clear to the other, and an apology so long I got tired standing up in the middle of it. My grandfather used to say that when a person asks you the second time, they are not asking. They already heard you. They are just finding out what your no is made of. The 5th confession is the bus trip. A group from the senior center takes an outing every spring, and last spring it was 11 hours on a bus. I said no. 11 hours is a long while to be that far from your own bathroom, and I am at the age where I plan my whole day around a very short list of certainties. They asked again. They said, "Your seat has already got your name taped on it, and I want you to hear how that works, because it is the cleverest trick there is." They did not argue with my no. They simply built something that would fall down if I kept it. I went. I was worn out for 4 days after, and I am not sure I can spare 4 days at 87. My grandmother said a no that leaves a gate open is not a no at all. It is a bench for the next asking to sit down on. I have built a lot of benches in my life. Have you built any? The 6th confession is Sunday dinner at a house I will not name. Good people, kind people. But that dinner starts at 1 and it does not turn loose of you until 7. And I had told them plainly that 6 hours at a table takes more out of me than it used to, so the second invitation came dressed up in a bow. Come anyway. Leave whenever you want. Have you ever once in your life been able to leave whenever you wanted? At 1 o'clock, nobody minds if you go. By 4, your coat is under 3 other coats in the back bedroom, and somebody has started in on the story of their surgery, and the youngest one is asleep across the doorway. Leaving whenever you want is a thing people say. It is not a thing that exists. My grandmother would have called that a rope with a bow tied in it. Dress it up however you like, it is still a rope. The 7th confession is a wedding 1,100 miles from my own front door. I love the girl who got married. I have loved her since she was small enough to fall asleep on my chest in a rocking chair. But that trip meant 2 airports, a rented car, and 3 nights in a bed that was not mine. And I told her mother no in June, gently, and I meant it all the way down to the floor. The second asking came in July, and it did not come from the girl. It came sideways, through a cousin, and it carried a sentence I have not been able to set down since. Your wife would have wanted you there. I went. And I want to be careful here, because I do not regret seeing that girl in her dress, not for 1 minute. But I lost most of August. I sat in my chair with the shades pulled down and let the days go by like train cars. My grandfather said a yes that has to be pulled out of a man takes a piece of him with it on the way out. The 8th confession is a hospital chair. A neighbor's mother was in for 9 days, and they asked me to sit with her because I am, they said, so good with the old ones. I am 87. I am the old ones. I said no. I said I would send a card and I would pray for her and I would carry a pot of soup over to the house. And every word of that was true. They asked again on the 4th day, and the second asking had a small sharp edge on it. It is not as if you have anywhere to be. That one went in deep, and I did not even feel it go in. I sat in that chair 4 afternoons in a row under a light that hummed at me. I am glad I did it for her. I am not glad about why I did it. Have you ever done a good thing for a reason you would not say out loud? The 9th confession is the one I am least proud of, and I have thought a long time about whether to tell it at all. My son told me last Thanksgiving that he could not come. Work was hard, his own boy was sick, and he needed those 4 days to sleep. He told me no over the telephone, and his no was honest and clear, the same as mine are. And I called him back 2 days later. I did not argue with him. I did worse than arguing. I said, "I understand, son. I just do not know how many more of these I have got." Then I stopped talking and let it sit there in the quiet, and he came. He drove 11 hours with a sick child in the back seat, and he sat at my table gray in the face, and he was kind to me the whole day, and I watched him fight to keep his eyes open over the pie. I had been on the other side of that table my entire life and never once seen it from over here. My grandmother said the pressure you learn to live under is the pressure you learn to put on other people. I had my own no walked over so many times that I picked the habit up like a coat somebody left on a hook, and I put it on, and I wore it to my own son. I have not asked him twice for anything since. Now I want to say something about that notebook, because I have a feeling some of you have started a list of your own in your head, and I know what the next thing is that happens. Naming these 9 was not the same as hating myself for them. It took me most of a winter to learn the difference, so let me hand it over quicker than I got it. When I read those 9 back, the first thing that came was an old voice. You are a pushover. You always were. That voice is a liar, and a lazy one besides, because it wants one small word to explain a whole long life. Here is what is actually true. I have a habit. The habit is that when a second asking comes, I feel the other person's discomfort in my chest before I feel my own tiredness in my own legs. That is all it is. It has a shape, and you can catch it happening in real time, right there in your own kitchen, with the telephone still warm against your ear. A man is not his habit. A habit is a thing you can catch in the act. You cannot catch an identity in the act. There is nothing there to take hold of. So I quit saying I am a pushover, and I started saying, there it is again, that little drop in my stomach when somebody asks me the second time. I did not cure it. I still feel it. I felt it last Tuesday afternoon. What is different is that now I can see it coming across the room like weather, and that gives me about 4 seconds I did not use to have. 4 seconds is not nothing. At 87, 4 seconds is a whole field to stand in. So let me gather this up for you now, the way my grandmother gathered the ends of her shawl before she stood up to go. 9. The harvest supper I had already turned down. The moving day where I was only going to supervise. The ride in the dark, and the truck asked for in front of witnesses, both of them the same trick in different hats. The bus with my name taped to a seat. The Sunday table I was welcome to leave whenever I wanted. The wedding that came at me sideways through a cousin, the hospital chair, because it is not as if I had anywhere to be, and my own boy, who I asked twice. Now turn it around and hold it up against your own life. When you say no, does it hold, or does it only open a negotiation? Who in your life has learned that your no is just the first offer? What did you agree to this month that you had already turned down once? And when they came back at you the second time, what did you feel first, your own body or their disappointment? How much of your quiet this year went to somebody who simply asked you one more time than you had the strength to refuse? Answer those honestly, and you will not need my notebook. You will have your own. I know some of you are sitting there with a question you would not say out loud in front of anybody. Is it too late for me? I have been this way my whole life, and I am 79 now, or 84. And this is simply who I am. I am not going to promise you that anything changes, or that anybody starts treating you differently, or how long any of it takes. I do not know those things, and neither does anybody who says they do. Here is what I do know. Age did not take the noticing away from me. Age did not take the choosing away from me either. You still get to notice the second asking, and you still get to make one ordinary choice about it. I would like to hear from you now, and I mean that honestly. Of these 9, which number hit closest to home for you? Which one made you set your cup down? Tell me the number down in the comments, And if you want to tell me the story underneath it, I will read that too. I read every one of them, usually early, before the light is up, and then come back and sit with me again tomorrow. There is more to say, and I am in no hurry, and neither is the fire. Take care of yourself tonight.